Hello and welcome everyone. You're joining us today for our Gold Panel special. We're going to focus on Brazil, but not just Brazil, but the Tapajós region. And joining us today, we've got Mike Hodgson, CEO of Serabi Gold, they're based in the UK, but where they've got Brazilian projects in Palito, Sachiko, and also Coringa. We've got Louis-Pierre Gignac, who's the president and CEO of GMIN Ventures, a new entrance into Brazil. Interested to see what he's got to say. They've recently picked up the Tocantinzinho TZ project from El Dorado. And Alan Carter, CEO of Cabral Gold, the Canadian explorer with the Cuiú Cuiú project in Brazil too. Gentlemen, how are we?
Very well, thank you, Matt. Thank you.
Good. Well, look, I'm excited to talk about this because I think we're seeing Brazil, and particularly regions that you guys all have in common, starting to catch people's attention as a gold-producing district. I'm going to ask each of you to start off with a 1-minute summary of your companies, and I'll pick up some questions from there. And Mike, if I may start with you, then Louis-Pierre, and then Alan.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Thank you all. Okay, Serabi Gold, we've been kicking around the Tapajós now for about 15 odd years. We must be doing something right because we've survived in what was a tough location and is certainly improving by the day with infrastructural improvements, etc. High-grade underground mining at the Palito mine, producing about 40,000 ounces. And I guess our next biggest story is we've got a similar deposit called Coringa, which we're hoping to bring on stream. We've actually started the underground development of the mine already, and we're working our way through the permitting, and hopefully that's going to be in construction next year. And that will, of course, double our production, which is a significant step for us. And I think it's fair to say that having been there in the region for a long time, we're pretty committed to the region. We're not seen as a company that's here today, gone tomorrow. We've certainly shown our staying power, and we're liked in the region. And I think that's really important in mining these days. We have a lot of local support, and long may that well last. So we're certainly there to stay. It's an area of great potential. We all know that, all three of us on this panel. That's why we're there. Simple as that.
Louis-Pierre, the new entrant.
Yes. So GMIN Ventures was essentially created about a year ago. And when we created the company, we essentially had a hunting license to go find a project. And so we landed on the acquisition of Tocantinzinho, which we closed essentially about a month ago now. And what really attracted us to this project was the great potential of the region itself, the fact that this was an advanced stage project that had kind of gone off the rails within El Dorado and became non-core, but was essentially a really good fit for our team to carry that project forward. So we're in the process of updating the feasibility study and looking to start construction towards the second half of next year.
Alan?
Yeah, thanks. My name's Alan Carter. I'm the CEO of Cabral Gold. Cabral Gold has been, we're about 4 years old as a public company now. We have an exploration project, an advanced exploration project in the Tapajós called Cuiú Cuiú. We currently have 2 deposits there that currently total about 1 million ounces. We have 5 rigs turning. I've been previously involved in the deposit Mike mentioned earlier, Coringa, which is putting into production, and also the TZ deposit that Louis-Pierre was mentioning. So I've been a long-term believer in the Tapajós. It is the site of a very large gold rush, and I'm very, very excited about recent developments.
Thank you, gentlemen. Look, I wanted to kind of pick up with you guys because we followed your story during the year. It's been a tough year, okay? COVID's come along and made it a little bit difficult. There's a lot of bumps along the road that you guys have had to overcome in a particular way. And I do want to talk about that, and I want to get into that in a second. But first of all, Brazil, it seems to come in and out of fashion for investors. Why have you guys selected Tapajós as a region? I mean, I'm going to start with you first of all, if I may, Louis-Pierre, because you're the new guy. You guys had choices as to where you went. What did you see there?
Yeah, look, for us, I mean, jurisdiction is always an important topic that comes up with investors, and for us, we did our due diligence and have been active in other countries in the Guyana Shield and elsewhere in South America. And for us, Brazil stood out as being just a great place to invest, given the large, mining industry in the country, and the ability to execute on projects with essentially competent people, staff, and technical people that you can find in country. So there was many pluses for us. I'd have to say that the Tapajós being in Pará State offers quite a bit of fiscal advantages compared to other states in Brazil as well. So definitely that was an attraction for us when we looked at the economics of the project. So yeah, there's definitely also for us just the potential of the region. We feel it's been explored to some extent, but largely still unexplored, and likely to have many other deposits discovered in that trend.
Actually, Mike, I mean, you've been there a while, like you say. Is it as easy as Louis-Pierre thinks?
I think he's certainly avoided the tougher times. There's no doubt about that. I actually was coincidentally today, I was on a call with the British Chamber of Commerce with the Secretary of Geology and Mineral Transformation on the call, a guy called Pedro Mesquita, and I was talking to him about the infrastructure change and what's actually happened in the Tapajós. And I would say under the Bolsonaro government, we've obviously seen a huge improvement in the road. I mean, I remember going there, and Alan will know even more. You know, we used to take, it could take hours, 15, 14 hours to get from the point at which you actually land your plane to actually drive to site. It was very tough. That's just completely changed. It's turned it on its head. I mean, it's a paved road all the way now. And really what today, I mean, he was actually saying how great, and this leads me on, maybe brings us on to energy, which we know is key. I'm sorry, I'm sort of like bouncing around a little bit, but at the end of the day, being a UK company, Canadian UK company with our existing funds and our hopeful new funds coming in, particularly after Glasgow, I get inundated with questions about how green our energy is, ESG, et cetera, And there today was the secretary talking about, how Brazil is leading the world in green energy production, et cetera. And I said, well, that's great, and I'm delighted to hear it. But the problem is the transmission of that energy, and we all need it. And this part of Brazil, 40 million ounces of gold production, artisanal gold production, that came from somewhere. It came from somewhere. That region, the Tapajós goldfield, contains an enormous amount of gold. Bring the energy there, and it's going to take off. It's absolutely going to take off. Now, I think it's on its way. I mean, there's all kinds of plans in process, and I think there's a real momentum today with what went on with Glasgow and the way everyone's got to react to this about how they're improving their energy, where they're getting their energy from, etc. And so Brazil's got all this beautiful green energy floating around the lines, but we're not connected to them, or they're very fragile lines. So it is very important that we actually use this momentum. And I know Alan agrees with me, and I'm sure Louis does too, that we're going to really try all the opportunities and angles to actually bring power. And if that happens, then this area will take off. And rather than being a promise, it'll be a reality. So I think perhaps Louis is coming in just at the right time, whereas we've kind of battled on with gensets and what power we can get, and, difficulty with access, etc., and probably but that said, we've enjoyed probably, and I think in Serabi's case, we've enjoyed success in an area that actually wasn't attractive to a lot of companies for the reasons I just mentioned. They just thought, too difficult. But I think the time is coming where it's not so difficult now, and I think this is the moment.
Well, that bodes well if it does actually happen. And let me bring Alan in, and then perhaps we can all riff off of each other in terms of what we need to see or what we need to believe. I mean, Alan, you've been there a while. You extol the virtues of this as a gold district, significant gold district, and Mike's just referenced some of the numbers that have come out of the ground so far. What are you hearing on the ground with regards to, in fact, more broadly, not just the energy component, but more broadly, infrastructure investment in the region?
Yeah, I mean, I concur with what Mike said. I mean, there's been massive improvements in the last few years, which I've been involved in this part of the world. Mike mentioned roads. The grid power right now is there's a transmission line that is to the east of us, and that transmission line is connected to a big hydroelectric power station to the south. And so the energy right now, there's a lot of upside to the potential for hydroelectric power here to add run-of-river plants and a number of places have been designated as potential plants. I mean, what's really driving the infrastructure here is actually not the mining business at all. It's the soybean industry. Now, in soy, as you probably know, Brazil is now the world's largest producer of soybean. It's a massive producer. The advantage that this part of the world has is that there's a 12-month growing season. So the producers here get 2, sometimes 3 crops a year. During the harvest times, there's 10,000 trucks go up and down that road that Mike mentioned, that BR-163 that was paved a few years ago. There's 10,000 trucks a day that move up and down that road, Matt. It's a massive, massive industry. And as a result, the soybean trucks used to move, and most of the soybean is produced just south of the Tapajos, in southern Pará and northern Mato Grosso. But the soy trucks used to go all the way south to Cuiabá and then across to a port near Rio, which is, well, I don't know, it must be a couple of thousand kilometers. Now that the road has been paved, those trucks are now all moving to the north, or most of them are moving to the north, and then loading on the Tapajos River. And there's a whole series of massive soybean terminals sprung up there. So there's a lot going on in this part of the world. And I think more broadly in Brazil terms, let's not forget, as I've said to you, Matt, several times, some of the world's largest gold producers are in Brazil. I get asked quite a lot. I'm sure both Louis-Pierre and Mike do. Why are you doing in Brazil? Well, we're in pretty good company here because, Kinross's largest gold mine is in Brazil. You've got Anglo Gold Ashanti here with 2 mining complexes. You've got Yamana, you've got London Mining that just 2 years ago made $1 billion investment. They bought Chapada, which is a big gold copper mine off Yamana. You've got Equinox, one of the world's fastest growing gold companies. They've got 4 gold mines in Brazil. There's a lot going on. And the Tapajos really, Matt, I think, is going to be the next big gold district. It certainly is internally in Brazil, but I think on a more regional sense and global sense, it's going to be pretty exciting future.
Louis-Pierre, let me ask you this, because as an investor, as I run a family office here, there's certain things that I need to see, and there's certain things I need to believe, and there's certain opportunities I like to take advantage of. What were the criteria by which you assessed your projects before settling on Tocantinzinho? Because it seems to me, if these companies can operate in country without the necessary infrastructure or the ideal infrastructure, how good could it be when this infrastructure is in play, when you can take advantage of it, when you haven't had to pay for it? Was that part of the decision making, or was there more to it for you?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things. I mean, obviously we've talked about the power situation, and for us the project is so large that we need reliable power to run this place. And we need to build a 138 kV line to connect into the grid. So for us, we always saw that as being an integral part of the project, and a cost to be factored into the initial construction costs. So it was never a question of can we have this line built by someone else, or will the government pay for some infrastructure to develop the region? We're going with the assumption that we have to make that investment, and it's built into the equation here for this project. For smaller projects, that could be a cost that's just unbearable. So, I think for the region, this project has scale that's going to justify these investments. And, I think the whole region will eventually benefit from that infrastructure. So like the guys have said, I mean, the infrastructure, once it's in place, opens up a lot of opportunities in the region.
Right.
And, we talked about transportation. I mean, the access road into Tocantinzinho and, essentially Cuiú Cuiú is able to access the project from the same road. I mean, there's definite advantages once that road got constructed. And previous to that, everything had to be, plane supported in terms of bringing in equipment and people. So it was extremely expensive to explore in the region back in those days.
Right.
So. Yeah, it definitely opens up a lot of opportunity.
Right, and the other thing that you guys are going to have to share, as well as roads, is resources, people, equipment, services, etc. That you're going to be competing for the same resources, aren't you? I mean, Mike, you've kind of might be sort of laying out some of the issues that you guys have had to overcome during COVID with just your own people, let alone any growth plans. I mean, remind us, what have you had to contend with?
Well, I suppose we're all in the same boat at the time being. We've tried to sort of probably with not really great success, wean people off the camp and try to create more of have more people living in town, so to speak. I wouldn't say it's been a roaring success. Probably we're going back to we are at the end of the day. It is still sufficiently remote that camp mining is what we're having to do. Really, I would imagine the guys are going to be the same. It's the same thing. I suppose again, I mentioned this today. We're a little bit of an anomaly in the mining business in Brazil, in the sense that we're small, high grade, underground selective mining, and that's really at the sort of the other end of the spectrum to what you normally see in Brazil. Brazil is dominated by large open pit mines, which usually bring and create their own towns almost, as therefore, an economy comes with the mine. We're a little bit different. We're small, and we actually have we are a fly-in, or not a fly-in, fly-out, but a drive-in, drive-out type situation. We aren't so far away from reasonable urban centres. I mean, Itaituba is the nearest city of any scale, let's say, and Nova Progresso is about 50,000 people. Itaituba, I imagine, is something like about 300,000 people. As Alan said, it was a bit of a sort of a Wild West town, but it's certainly on the up in terms of its with all the soya refineries, silos, etc., and loading areas that Alan mentioned. That's brought an entirely new economy to the area. And as the soya business is moving north from Mato Grosso up that BR-163, as the plantations are going up the line, and the economy is as well, and there's a lot of associated and indirect jobs coming with it too. So, I think there's quite a movement of people to the region to take agricultural jobs, etc. And certainly you find with all those, well, as Alan says, 10,000 trucks a day. There's no shortage of mechanics on that road, I can tell you. So there's there's a lot of those type of businesses. So you can find, let's say, I hope the term is not incorrect when I say rank and file type people, semi-skilled and lower skilled jobs. They are readily available, I say, completely. There's a lot of people up there available for that. What we struggle to find, we do have a challenge with, is the professional people, and they generally come from the south of Brazil. We have very few expats in the company, but all the senior, the management and the professional people are generally still coming from the southern part of the country. But that probably represents about sort of 8% of our workforce, I would say. And that's an issue which I've always had with basically the government in Pará, that here's the country, the state that wants to be number one in Brazil in terms of mining, and yet it still doesn't really have a mining school in Belém. And I've always had an issue with this, saying, well, you don't like having all these mineros working in Pará, well, do something about it, and let's have a mining school in Belém and really, put the state on the map.
I mean, that's a big statement, Mike, because I think we've talked in the past about having, in terms of your fly in, fly out crew, they're not just coming from within Brazil, they're coming from outside of Brazil too, and that had, in the early days caused you some problems. Does the state recognize this? Is it moving towards doing anything about it, or is the kind of people side of the business going to have to be just that little bit more expensive than you hope? I
think for the foreseeable future, the professionals are going to come from states like Minas Gerais and Goiás, and that's where most of our guys come from. So that's it. But we are really trying to. We now employ 77% of our workforce all come from the state of Pará now. Okay. So we've really tried to sort of emphasize that and really sort of empower the local people.
Right.
To take these jobs.
Okay, Alan, you've got 5 drills turning. You've got a lot of exploration going on. You've got a big district yourself there. In terms of the crews there, we've been hearing stories from all across the world where, because of the whole supply chain issue, that drill crews are just taking a little bit longer to turn up. They don't necessarily turn up because someone's offered them an extra $100 a day. And that can be problematic because you're working to a timetable. How are you finding it in country?
It's tough. It's tough to get drills in Brazil right now. You've got to plan months ahead. It's tougher than I can ever recall it. Everybody wants to drill right now, so there is a lot of competition. There's a limited sort of pool of resources and number of drills available, particularly sort of RC rigs. There's Brazil traditionally had quite a lot of diamond rigs. There's a lot of diamond rigs available, but if you want to drill RC, which obviously we know is faster and cheaper, then there are limited options. So we are competing on different levels, particularly for people, drill rigs, geologists, skilled people. And I concur with Mike. I mean, historically, a lot of the skilled people, and I think it will continue for the foreseeable future, have come from southern states. Minas Gerais is a good one. Minas Gerais is actually one of the biggest states in southern Brazil, and translated to English, it's called General Mines. That's how the name of that state translates. So there's a lot of big mines in the south, and obviously a lot of the expertise is located in the south. So most of our skilled people, geologists and senior people, are fly in from other cities. And
Louis-Pierre, can I just say, because obviously you've got the parent company, as it were, or the family business, GMIN Services. You guys deal with these problems every day. Do these things not concern you? Because you must see it all around the world.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, like when we, for example, constructed Fruta del Norte in Ecuador, it's a country that's it's essentially at its infancy in terms of mining. So when we had to build that, we had to bring in about 200 expats from North America to supervise the construction of the site. So, in Brazil, we don't expect to be bringing in such a large expat contingency just because we can find good resources in country. But to Alan and Mike's comment, I think, we're essentially competing with the valleys of this world and some of the bigger companies that they've seen massive growth and have experienced really good pricing as well for their commodities. So, I think it's more of an industry, hot market that we have to contend with. But I'd say the one thing that plays in our favor is that because we do have a camp situation, we can actually spread out quite wide in terms of where we're sourcing competent people from.
Right.
When you're kind of seconded or having to hire from a local community because you don't have a camp, then you have to, your circle of radius of finding people is much smaller. So look, I actually see that as an opportunity when you're in a tight market to be in a camp situation. So we're seeing it that way.
Tell me this though. I don't mind who answers this question, because I've always wondered with drillers, are they just watching the time because they get paid by the hour or by the day, or did they get excited when you actually hit something, when they actually find gold? I mean, how's it work? Alan, come on, you've got a big team there.
Well, these guys will get excited when we start getting good results, and then obviously, I mean, if there's gold associated with quartz veins, like at Mike's projects and in ours, if you start pulling a lot of quartz, then drillers tend to get pretty excited. And I mean, obviously, if you start to make discoveries and you start to grow your resource base, then that means a larger drill contracts for these companies. So they do get excited. Not as excited as the geologists, but they do.
They see an exploration program becomes an evaluation program, and that's meters, and that's so yeah.
Okay. I it's kind of funny because I guess the senior management or geologists I can understand, but the drillers, I just wonder if it's just another day in town, which kind of explains if someone's going to pay me more money, I'm off. No matter if this is a big new district, big new gold district, is there any emotional tie to that? And maybe it's only the bankers and the companies getting excited about that. Let's talk about, I mentioned supply chain issues. We talked about some of the competition for resource in terms of people and equipment, but in terms of supply chain issues, the industry seems to be moving from a sort of just-in-time process, which is, i.e., we're about to run out of filters, let's get them in. They take 2 weeks to arrive, so we'll order them 4 weeks ahead of time. To actually, that doesn't work anymore because there's no guarantees and there's a lot of competition. We're going to have to, create some kind of backup inventory process. Again, Michael, I'll go to you because I know you did learn the hard way, I think this year or last year, I should say.
Yeah, I mean, you can't kind of cover everything off. I think when the pandemic began, we kind of focused mostly on the process plant, and we probably got more proactive management in the process plant at the time. So I think, they were really smart and they looked at, critical items and just stocked up on inventory. a little better because we didn't quite know how this was going to pan out, how long it was going to take. So we kind of, the process plant was kind of sailed on through, but we weren't so smart on the mine. And I think we've paid the price, actually, ironically, a little bit more this year than last year. Last year, we kind of battled our way through and sort of probably lived off the fat a little bit, and not only in the blocks underground and mining, but also in the inventory and stores. And I think it was pretty hard to set budgets for this year based on, people didn't really factor in supply chain delays, and as you know, we've struggled this year with our development a lot underground, not for the lack of miners or for mobile fleet or things like this. Silly things, like you say, like really big bits of equipment not being able to work for the sake of a filter, or little things like a $50 part keeping a $500,000 piece of equipment not working. Very frustrating, and that was down to management just not being proactive enough. And we actually have made some management changes, not because of that, but it was just one of the issues, which hopefully we're sort of really getting all that solved. Things are easing now, definitely. They are beginning to ease. This was all a function of really the big industrial centers in Brazil were far worse hit. The remoteness of the Tapajós, again, played into our hands. It didn't really impact any of us, I don't think, in terms of our day-to-day business. I mean, everyone's so far apart, and, there's no real sort of, congestion there. So short of just spacing people out in our camp, we kept going relatively normally. The problem is the manufacturing centers in the south of Brazil were the areas that did get shut down, the plants, the areas were furloughed. So there's been this delay, and it's beginning to work its way through, but we've had so much stuff on back order. Look, we're a small company. We can't cover every eventuality. We can't have $10 million worth of stuff in stores just in case. We'd love to, but you just can't afford it. So you pick your battles, you pick your fights, and try and do what you can. And hopefully, but it is easing now. I'm pleased to say it is getting better.
Louis-Pierre, how do you guys manage it? You guys have a lot of cash available to you now, right? Plus, you've got a track record, so you've got a bit of optionality here.
Yeah, I think part of the financing we did on the back of the acquisition was to build up a good cash position so that we could commit to long lead item orders. And we're well aware of the market being pretty tight, and with the shutdowns that happened, lead times for certain equipment are about a year. And like, for example, stuff that you wouldn't expect to be an issue trying to buy, such as a pickup, sometimes it can be 6 months before you can get a pickup. So, that's the type of stuff that we're trying to anticipate as we're, updating our study, getting pricing for different materials. And when we see that something's going to be an issue, then we're slowly committing to certain expenditures to try and manage that schedule and the issues of supply chain and getting what we need in time. So that's definitely a risk that we're trying to mitigate as we move forward and with the cash that we have.
You've got a lot of pressure on you, right? Because it's a news story. Like I say, you had options as to where in the world you went. You chose here, okay? So you've got your shareholders. You've that you need to kind of keep happy. You've got your bankers you need to kind of keep happy. You've got your old man you need to keep happy because he's going to be watching you, and he's tough. But you've got so much to get right. But I'm just wondering if you can sort of share with us what are you sort of bringing into this story in terms of what you've learned from being this kind of service provider to other big companies all around the world, winning some of the biggest projects in the world. How do you think you mitigate a lot of the risk component here? Yeah,
I mean, we've done it before on other projects, and I think we do have good relationships with some of the equipment suppliers and vendors. So normally, when we're contacting them to get in the queue to get materials and equipment, we rank pretty high up in the order for them, just because we're also servicing other clients in projects. So I think the relationships that we've built up over the years is going to help us going forward in terms of building the maintaining and expanding on the relationships that we have with some of these vendors. So and I think the other thing that we've tried to really build into the project at this point is knowing what Brazil can provide, given that we previously weren't sourcing from Brazil. But for example, Metso, Udutech, FL Schmidt, they all manufacture most of the mill equipment that we need for the project in Brazil. So that's a main advantage for us. We're not going to have to deal with overseas, shipping and ocean freight for bringing in some of this important equipment. So those are all things that we're looking at and building into how we're seeing the project. And a lot of the relationships that we have with Metso Udutech in North America, well, those get transferred down to their Brazilian counterparts pretty rapidly.
I think I also would say as well, Louis, that almost in a way, the bigger you are in Brazil, the easier it is, because there's a lot of big stuff available in Brazil. I think we found being the small company, that's quite difficult because you are very niche. So the bigger you are, the more likely you'll be able to find easier suppliers. There's more people doing it. Everything that's scaled up in Brazil, there's more of it. And again, the vendors selling this stuff, they want to make big machines. They don't want to make small machines. Small machines, there's no margin on small machines. So that's tough for us. That we really do have to think ahead. Like today, I was on site today. We're still waiting to get our budget done for next year. We're just finalizing it. But we ordered equipment before we even set the budget for 2022 in July. Just had to thumbsuck what we need. Well, we've got a few years of empirical data to have a vague idea what we're going to want. Bit difficult with Coringa coming on stream. We've got to make a bit of a sort of we've got to sort of play look in the crystal ball when exactly we're going to really be able to go forward with that. But But we have to really plan ahead because our mobile fleet, the underground stuff, all has to come from overseas. We can't get anything in country at all. So that's but if you're a bigger producer, that's a lot easier in Brazil.
Okay, well said. Louis-Pierre, I think these two will be tapping you up for some cheap supplies by the sounds of it.
We can combine some of our purchases and get a bit of a bulk discount. So
oh my goodness. There you go. There you go, guys. You're all welcome.
We're the first guys on the road, so we can hijack the stuff that's coming in. You see.
Yeah, if there's a little missing out of our supply, we'll know where it went. So.
Yeah,
that's too good.
Dick Turpin's here. Yeah, exactly.
If he's got an English accent, Louis-Pierre, you know where he's come from. Alan, you've got it easy by comparison. Then you're just drill.
Yeah, to some extent, but I mean, look, we don't. Need the same sort of equipment, but we still need spares and all the rest of it. And Mike's right. The manufacturing capability in Brazil is in the south. And so this whole COVID thing has impacted that. So, yeah, we've noticed that it's taking longer to get spares and certain equipment that we need for what we do. The other big impact that it's had for us is just getting results back. So as we ship thousands of samples a month, down the road to Belo Horizonte to the big SGS Geosol lab down there, and it's the lab just been everything's been slowed down. Turnaround times have really been impacted.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Very true.
What's the time? What are we talking about? 4 weeks? 6 weeks?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes 6, sometimes more. I mean, prior to the pandemic, you could expect to get your results back 3-4 weeks, sometimes earlier than that. Now it's 4 to 6 generally, and can take longer.
Yeah, I guess it's frustrating. We've seen a lot of CEOs come on just very frustrated about how quickly they can get the information. They know it's good. You guys always do, but you know it's good. You want to get it out to market, but you can't. So I guess there is a big, deep frustration there. I'm just sort of conscious of timing, guys. I do want to. You mentioned in the beginning. I think it was Mike, possibly the green element, the ESG element, these net zero carbon will come into the conversation, I'm sure too, with regards to energy, but. More broadly, are you seeing, and I guess Louis-Pierre, for you, it'd be interesting because you did this deal recently and you will have raised money recently. So was that a big part of the discussion for you in terms of the money? And if so, do you find that, obviously because you're beginning this process, you weren't able to take advantage of perhaps cheaper money influenced by ESG concerns? Yeah,
you're right. I mean, the ESG aspect is super important. I mean, the carbon emissions is a question that we get a lot. definitely the fact that we're putting a power line that's going to be providing us green energy is a plus for our project. The question I often get asked is, are you going to have battery powered trucks? Well, unfortunately, we don't have battery powered 100-ton class trucks yet in as a technology that we can access. So we have to think of other ways of offsetting some of our carbon emissions, and that's something we'll be looking into. Definitely, we do have to impact some surface to build the mine out, but definitely we'll be doing progressive rehabilitation as we move along with the project and doing that type of work in parallel to the operation itself. But we've seen other people do call it side projects to do some carbon offsets, and that'll be something that we'll be looking into as well.
Right. What about you, Mike? What are you doing about it? Because you're in production.
We are, yeah. I think we do get half of our energy is hydro, the grid we have, and the other half we have to top up with diesel. I guess we are looking at all kinds of hybrid issues as well, how alternatives with the Greco, etc., what we might be able to do there. We actually don't, because of we're a rich producer in terms of kind of carbon consumption per ounce. We actually come out of this pretty well. We look pretty good because we're not moving a lot of material. We're moving sort of a quality product, and we're doing everything to try to enhance the quality. But at the end of the day, it goes back to what I said right at the very beginning. Brazil has this amazingly high level of stroke hydro, stroke renewable energy, and for a big part of the country, its transmission is transmitting that energy. It's not a. It's. And I think this is the. It's very doable. And again, speaking to the government, which I've now done twice recently, it's in their plan to do this and connect this loop, and then I think this is going to really open up the whole area in terms of because it's something which I'm getting a lot of our funds in London are you just can't escape this now. They really are, and particularly after Glasgow, I wouldn't say it's got out of control, but it's certainly at the forefront. It really is, and it's something which has to be addressed, and we have to do absolutely everything we can. We've looked at carbon, the offsets as well. There's several companies now in Brazil actually offering, particularly in Pará and in Amazonas, where you can actually sort of, we will try, and we are going to try start reforesting and sort of try to offset our credits that way. We're looking at other companies that actually offer that service, where if you actually haven't got the land space, you can actually fund them to actually do it. I'm a bit anxious about just doing that as like a bit of a, to use this news term, I just don't want to greenwash what we're doing, to try to pretend that, if I just plant some trees over there, I can do whatever I like over here type thing. So there is always that risk of that criticism. But as I say, I think our two projects at the moment, because they're high grade, we aren't moving a lot of material. We do come out of this looking reasonably good, but that's not any kind of suggestion that we're stopping at that. We're definitely going to continue to, improve as much as we can.
Is the difficult bit of the ESG narrative at the moment is that there's no kind of clear definition of what it means, and different jurisdictions will have clearly different views on the social component. Governance, I think, stands for itself, but the E in particular, people talking about the energy component, or I should say, planting trees seems to be the thing that people go to, but there's got to be more to it. I know, Louis-Pierre, you mentioned we're going to use electric vehicles, but where do you get your guidance from? How do you know what you need to be doing, or are you just all making it up, your own version of it?
Yeah, well, for me, one of the strong E aspects is water management and tailings management,
right?
And it's doing that right.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of what we looked at as part of the project, how we're managing tailings and water, so recycling water where we can. Any effluent that gets discharged from the site will be treated as required to meet regulations and thresholds. But I think it's trying to minimize your footprints as well where possible, and not it comes down to designing things properly to minimize your impact right from the start. So that's how we've been looking at the project. And, phasing the project so you're not having to create large impacts right from the start, and allows you to do things a bit different from a reclamation point of view.
I think a lot of it as well, Lou, is getting people used to the idea when they see the benefits of income to the region and what companies bring, like starting small and getting bigger. It might not be the best thing to do from an NPV perspective of what your analyst in the middle of the other part of the world is saying, but at the end of the day, sort of getting people used to the idea. I mean, I think that's the reason why Serabi has been successful and got such unanimous support getting the public hearing for Coringa. The people in Nova Progresso are hugely supportive of the project because they want the jobs. Yeah. They want the jobs. These guys, look, I should be careful what I say here. They're not bothered about ESG. They want jobs. Simple as that. And we are at the same time, obviously. I mean, I think that people focus on the E of ESG because E is something you can kind of measure. You can, how many trees do I need to plant to sort of offset at what the carbon dioxide I'm putting into the atmosphere and things like that. Again, sort of how much of our water do you recycle, all these sort of things. They're things we can do. The S is kind of harder because the S is always about, how many local jobs are you bringing? What are the indirect jobs you're providing with those direct jobs? And, all the programs for the community you're putting in place in terms of, we do a lot for sort of building local schools and funding. I mean, I must say we're a part of Brazil that's pretty undeveloped, Matt, and there's a lot of people on low incomes there, and the municipality, the companies end up doing part of what the municipality should be doing, basically. So our role in being in the area is there's a lot of social responsibility there for companies, which we try to do our best. Certainly do.
Okay. Well, look, I think we'll pick up with each of you in the new year with regards to individual interviews, but also just trying to understand that component a little bit more. But look, what I want to finish with today, because I'm conscious of your time here, guys, is how you project yourself into 2022. Because I always say, if you've got companies that can operate in a difficult market environment like 2021 has been, unexpectedly been, you put yourself in a position to benefit and launch into 2022, which from all accounts seems to be a very pro-precious metal market, certainly in terms of what the brokers are saying, the fund managers, the institutional guys that we're speaking to, and certainly a lot of the family offices looking at gold 2022 for gold projects, good gold projects with strong fundamentals, so they don't make the same boom and bust mistakes of 2020. How are each of you approaching that? I mean, Alan, just talk us through what you think you've been able to do this year to set you up to best take advantage of next year.
Yeah, I think this year for us has been a very, very successful year. We've made 2 new gold discoveries on the site. We, as you said, we do have a district here within the Tapajós, and we're finding new deposits. So we've got a pretty aggressive drill program in process right now, and planned going well into 2022. So it's going to be a pretty exciting year for us next year. So if we can build on the success that we've had this year, awful lot of drill results, and we truly believe that the district is going to have multiple deposits within it, and so we'll push those forward as aggressively as we can. So yeah, it's going to be a very exciting year for us.
Louis-Pierre, I mean, you're just starting this thing off. Your plans are fresh in your head.
Well, I mean, we're starting a drill program as well. So we expect these will be some of the first holes that will be drilled on the property since 2015. So we're pretty excited to get that cycle going as well in advance of us financing the project. So for us, 2022 is going to be a period where we finance the project to get this off the ground. So that's going to be a very exciting year for us, and very important catalyst for the company.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think a lot of people watching you. And Mike.
Well, I guess our sort of main story for next year hopefully will be the full installation construction license for Coringa. We've already started the underground mine. We should hit the ore body just before the end of the year. I'm going to be down there in about 10 days' time to hopefully see that with a bit of luck. If nature behaves, I'll see it. So we're moving into the final stages of permitting. We've already had our site visits all done by the environmental agency. So hopefully we'll have good news getting that LI. And then we'll start constructing, assembling the process plan and putting all that together. So we'll really see the project moving forward and, developing the mine like crazy and building up a nice big stockpile, all that. Over at Palito and Sao Chico, pretty much more of the same. But the other part of the story, which I really like, and I know Alan is certainly a big fan of, is our regional exploration. We're going to continue with 2 rigs drilling, doing the day job, which is resource growth on Palito and Sao Chico. But we've got that beautiful, big sort of east-west anomaly, which our exploration manager thinks we've got great porphyry potential there. So we're going to be moving those forward. We've got 6 sites where we believe we've got really good size anomalies, like 1 kilometer or 1 kilometer anomalies. So we're going to be drilling those out. And hopefully we'll be not just talking about chasing veins.
Brilliant. Look, guys, I was hoping for a Brazilian gold panel, but this is the Tapajós Gold panel today, an area that people should be looking at. Investors, do take a look at each of these 3 companies. Good management teams, know what they're doing, got a plan, and we'll be following them with great interest next year. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.